Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think one thing that I keep coming back to, it doesn't matter, how long it's been that we've been doing this, but I keep coming back to thinking kind of almost every day or every week I wake up and I go about and do my work almost unchanged. I mean, of course, so much has changed about what's happening on the ground, the amount of work you can do or the nature of the work. But I get up, I do my job. My job can be done from home. I've been working from home for, maybe well before the pandemic and, much of the time and, for 10, 11 months now. But then it brings into real focus the types of workers and factory settings that we spend so much of our time thinking about, where there's no scope for doing that for all of these workers. So I mean, this kind of work from home has become such so synonymous with COVID, but we're talking about exactly the industries and parts of the world and parts of the population that have no hope for doing that sort of thing. So that's really the crux of what ILO has been trying to do with getting, helping factories get back to work and so on. How long do you think this spans out? What do you think is the future of work? Do you think there's a major change in that? There will be scope for work from home for some of these industries, or is it really that in some sense you're against that rock? There's no way to move that, and so all of this is about, well, how do you get back to work safely, and how many people can get back to work safely when there's no chance of any kind of work from home?
Yeah, well, I saw somebody, a CTO, Chief Technology Officer for one of these big Silicon Valley firms, saying, what we've seen in the last year is what we would have seen over 10 years in terms of the technology. Things like what you and I are doing right here. The 5 different Zoom meetings and Teams meetings that I've had today, a couple of which would have been held only when I went to Cambodia or only when I went to Laos. Now we do those instantly. We set it up the night before. Hey, we talk tomorrow. All the webinars and everything else. Now, along with that is going a whole bunch of jobs like my own, and perhaps yours, that were done in offices. I did go to the office every day. I don't think that's ever going to go back to that in that way. I might have an office, although I bet not. I bet I will have a desk if I want to go into the office. It won't be my desk, it'll be a hot desk. And only 10, 20% will be in that office because they want to get out of the house, because they don't have a better place to go. But I'm lucky. I've got an office, and I think that gets to your point. So, but that's happened with a lot of people, and we're doing a lot of, and not just high-level knowledge workers. We're doing work with call centers in the Philippines, as you know, and those people were going to the call centers. They're not anymore. They're sitting at home. So we're doing training. We're doing our soft skill training that we used to do in a room. Now we're getting them all Zoom together, and they're all connecting in from their houses. Those jobs, it's great that they're able to do it. What jobs won't? Well, lots of jobs that won't. There's got to be somebody that serves you burgers at McDonald's. There's got to be somebody that makes your shirt when it goes down the line in Cambodia. What does that mean for those people? I do think in some degree they're left out of all these. Do we see this as beneficial, this being able to work from home? I like it. I like the opportunity to have lunch with my wife, now that my kids are studying at home all the time, I get a chance to see them a lot. It's been really nice in that regard. And people that don't have that access don't benefit from it. What are the other downsides of not being able to remote work, to work from home, to tap technology? I think very often, of course, those are some of the higher earning jobs. And will that inequality gap that we've seen growing globally continue? And will this exacerbate it in some way? We probably have to ask an economist about that, where things are going. I wouldn't be surprised. We haven't changed the system in a way that addresses growing inequality and making it easier for knowledge workers in the top tier to actually work in a different way. I'm not sure if that's going to result in people that don't have that benefit and those opportunities doing better.
Yeah, base of the pyramid is tough. It's in some ways, again, I think your comment about the CTO's quote, I think is it's been true before too, that you get these kind of fits and starts. You get some, some shock happens, and you get this proliferation. But the benefits of that always accrue kind of mid to top pyramid. The base of the pyramid it's been, you're doing the same job in so many ways. It's an overstatement, oversimplification, but you're doing the same job you were doing, the same folks were doing 100 years ago to some degree. I mean, if we think about garments, of course, technology has changed, but there's still one person working one machine in so many factories around the world. I mean, it's this kind of crazy thing. Even if you go to final assembly plants for automobiles, there's still 1,500 people who show up to work every day to touch this car. And that's not even taking into account, that's just final assembly. That's not even taking into account that the engine and the transmission all got assembled somewhere else by another hundreds of workers. So you can look at it either way. You could look at it and say, well, there used to be 10,000 people that had to make, stand on a line, and there's less now. Or you could say, wow, it's 2021 and there's still thousands of people who touch this car. So, there's some element of this core work that hasn't changed over decades and decades. And those are exactly the types of people that I struggle to think about. What does work from home or remote look like? Somebody still has to go and collect at a particular place. All these people have to collect to put this widget together that the world wants and needs.
Well, now you're getting into something that I think is worrying and uncertain, which is that aspect of automation. Yes, people have been doing really low-skilled, machine-like work, but because we have more nimble fingers and whatever else, we can do it. But I think that could be reaching an end. And with that, we open a whole nother rabbit hole to go down, which is, okay, it's really not a great job to have to make shirts 12 hours a day. I can tell you, I've been in enough garment factories to say I don't ever want to work in one. I don't want anybody that I know and love to have to work in one as a stitcher, as a cutter, as whatever it happens to be. It's a tough job, but it is a job, and it's in a formal economy business with some of the benefits that go with that. I do wonder where things are going in terms of technology and automation. And I think we're going to see in the next 20 years some level of loss of those jobs. And I wouldn't be surprised if the garment sector, which employs millions and millions around the world, could begin to see some serious automation. If not, it's always been on the horizon. I've been working in garments for 30 years. They've always been talking about automation. There's been attempts at it, but I think we're getting there, and the technology will get better and better. And then there's a question of, and how about all those millions and millions of workers with very little skills? And what we're hearing on the other side from companies is, why do they want to develop soft skills? Why are our soft skills programs that we've been doing with Nestle and H&M and Seagate and Delta and all these other companies, they want it because they realize suddenly their workers don't have to just do widgets. They have to think about when the widget's going out of spec, when the machine that they're working on is down, or that their team that they're working in isn't working quite right on a certain problem, and they as a team can solve it.
Exactly the bit that a human, it almost complements any machine with, or complements the team. Yeah,
should be. And if the whole world had a job doing something like that, it would be an enriching experience versus stitching all day. But the nature of that kind of work is that it probably reduces the amount of people that we need, and people doing work. And okay, rich countries, maybe they'll come up with some ways of guaranteed minimum wages or whatever it happens to be. But I work in a lot of countries that really is not an option, and probably isn't an option on the horizon. So what's going to happen if we go through that process? I'm not saying that's going to happen. Heaven knows. Again, something they've talked about for donkey's years. But I don't know. I see a lot of that coming in, and a lot of it is pretty amazing. And some of it is probably job destroying.
Yeah, and then the long-term economist view, macro view, and I'm not a macro economist, right? But then reminds us, well, those things have happened, and then a few decades later, that those workers can and often do get reintegrated in a different way. You make more stuff. Okay, you have a machine that does more of this, then one person can augment 10 machines instead of one person complementing one machine. You make 10 times more stuff, and then there's that many more people to do BPO call center
Harder,
outsourcing.
humaner stuff.
Yeah, from their homes, So that's the interesting thing is that you've got. I think it was fascinating to hear you talk about entry level work in other industries like BPO call center work, whatever the base of their pyramid is able to work from home, because so much of what we're hearing is that there's these industries where the base of the pyramid can't work from home, cannot, and it's exactly what's exacerbating that inequality that we're talking about. There's a lot of work that can be done middle management up from anywhere, and they're continuing business as usual. There's a whole bunch of people who have to make a really tough decision over the last year of like, do I go to work and expose myself and have this risk, or what? Sit at home, be safe, but watch my family starve, or not make payments on things we need. And so that's been this really terrible trade-off for so much of the base of the pyramid of different industries. Of course, one version of the future is, well, some of that work, this kind of dramatically hastens the idea of automation in some of these last frontier industries like garments, where we keep hearing about automation, but it hasn't quite come. But then what do those workers do in the short run? You're talking about millions and millions, tens of millions of women in particular, younger, newly married, newly mother women who populate this industry around the world and don't actually have that many other opportunities in a lot of those countries. The amazing thing about garments is that it is the frontier. It's the exact industry where women transition into the labor force in so many of these. And it's been the case, for years and years.
Country after country, it's gone through Asia and upgraded their opportunities, created,
but it feels like then
the nature of work in the garment sector, well, it's not bad. Relatively speaking, it provides a lot of opportunity for millions of people. As you said, largely women, largely younger. And I don't know what happens, what replaces it if, it's not going to happen overnight anyway. Automation will creep in different ways. It'll be the materials handling on this, the final inspection on that, or whatever it happens to be, but it'll be chunked off over time, most probably. But that time might not be a really long time horizon. It could be relatively short. And then I think we have to look and say, okay, what else? What more do the economies of Cambodia, Bangladesh, or India do with the workers that were formerly employed in this high labor-intensive area? As I said, in richer countries, they can go off and start a Pilates studio, whatever it is that they're going to do, service sector jobs, different things. But it's not so easy when you're a developing country with very limited opportunities in terms of value add.
And so what's interesting is I think then it begs the question, what work should you and I be doing? So it's about soft skills, it's about tech skills, but computer skills, language skills, so on. But we still don't know. We believe in all of those things. We've seen the power of those things. It allows you to do other jobs in the same business and to move up and to move laterally. We don't know that that's the answer to the question of, well, what happens if you don't have a job in the garment sector at all and you have to think what's the next sector? It's a bigger question, but I think we tend to be optimistic that more skills means you're going to have more options, but we have to see what's going on. So that's, I think, fascinating stuff.